Hello everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Self-Care, Improving the Quality of Life. My name is Sohel and I will be presenting today on the quality of balance. Just some quick housekeeping notes. If you need to, the chat feature is available, so if you could please use your Gmail to log into the YouTube, that will help you use the chat feature. Lastly, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat and we'll be able to answer them for you. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so to begin today, I want you to ask yourself, do a little self-reflection. In the past few years, on a scale of 1 being totally imbalanced to 5 being perfect balance, how balanced do you feel your life is? 3? Okay. 4? Okay. For me personally, it would be a 3. Okay, so hopefully you've had time to self-reflect. And then can we get the next slide, please? So now I want you to ask yourself, currently, on a scale of 1, totally imbalanced, to 5, being perfectly balanced, rate how balanced you feel your life is. 3? Well, currently, I feel my balance is at a 2. So, we can get the next slide. How are you satisfied with your current lifestyle? I want you to ask yourself. Have a little self-reflection. Are you satisfied with your current lifestyle? Also, has it changed for the better or for the worst over the past few years? For me personally, it has changed for the worse. And I'm not proud in saying that, but it's something that's happened and something I've had to deal with, right? So, the next question is, how do you feel when you have a balanced life? Name some of the qualities.
You're happy.
Happy, that's a good one.
You feel content.
Content, yeah. Well, yeah, all of those are good answers. So you have feelings of peace, love, happiness, light, you're worry-free, right? You're motivated, you're passionate, and ultimately you have positive thoughts. Those are all associated with a balanced life, right? So, on the contrary, how do you feel when you have an unbalanced life? Stressed. Lazy. Tired. Yeah, that's a big one. So all of those are great answers. So you get feelings of stress, exhaustion, heaviness. You're sad. You're dissatisfied with life. You have unease and you're unmotivated. What are all those associated with? Negative thoughts, exactly. So, now I want you to connect those two. So first, if you said, are you satisfied with the current balance of your life? If you said yes, now I want you to connect it with the emotions that you felt. So visualize at the end of the day, what emotions do you feel? Do you feel happy? Do you feel sad? Do you feel motivated, or do you feel relieved that the day is over? Do you feel energetic, or do you feel exhausted? So, depending on that, depending on your first answer of whether you are satisfied with life or not, and depending on how you feel, you should get to know then whether your life is balanced or not. Personally, I feel my life is pretty imbalanced at the moment. With the pandemic, with everything going on, I feel pretty exhausted by the end of the day. I feel like sleeping all the time. I feel tired. Can I have some water? So those are all feelings associated with what? An unbalanced life. Can we have the next slide? So now I'm going to read you guys a little story. So this is called the Mexican Fisherman story. Okay? So a rich American banker was at a coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman docked. Inside the boat were several fish, even though the fisherman at sea was only there for a little while. The American then asked why didn't he stay out longer and catch more fish, given he was so talented at it. The Mexican said that he had enough to support his family's immediate needs. The American then asked, but what do you do with the rest of your time? The Mexican fisherman said, I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take care of my wife, stroll through the village each evening, and play guitar. I have a full and busy life. The American businessman scoffed. I can help you. You should spend more time fishing, and with the proceeds, buy a bigger boat. With the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats, and eventually have a fleet of boats. The Mexican fisherman asked, but how long will this take? The American said, 15, 20 years. But then what? Asked the Mexican. Then what? The American laughed and said, that's the best part. You get to sell your company and become very rich. Make millions of dollars. Millions. Then what? The American said, then you retire, move to a small coastal village where you sleep a little late, fish a little, play with your children, take care of your wife, stroll through the village each evening, and play your guitar. Okay, so just in case you didn't get the story, I'll just give a little recap. So the Mexican, who was just fishing a few hours a day to support his family's immediate needs. And there was an American businessman who was working his life in order to have a good retirement. That's what society wants nowadays. They focus so much on retirement and not on your immediate needs. So the Mexican right now has a balanced life. He's fulfilled. He's content. And the American, ironically, is working towards what the Mexican already has. Time to be with his children. Time to take care of your wife. So, what's the moral of the story then? Can we get the next slide, please? So, the moral of the story is living a balanced life means living in the moment. There's a quote on the presentation right now which talks about the importance of living in the moment. So, now ask yourself, are you the fisherman or are you the businessman? So, next slide please. So, now I'll share a bit about my personal experience. Personally, I feel it's a bit ironic since I am currently studying business in the University of Calgary. And ironically, I think of myself as a businessman. Some days I can work 10 to 12 hours a day sitting at the computer with more work than I can ever accomplish in a day, right? The list of to-do tasks is never done. There's always more to it, right? So, this workshop has given me the chance to dig deeper, find out why do I not live a balanced life and why I should live a balanced life, right? I bet many of you, because of the pandemic or because of life in general, we feel constantly tired, constantly sad, constantly dissatisfied with life, not content, right? So, after doing a little research, one thing I found really interesting. It's a thing called the Burnout Epidemic. Any guesses? No? Well, it's actually classified as a disease, but when you hear it, you'll realize that it's not really a disease. It's caused by a combination of exhaustion, cynicism, and stress because of excessive personal involvement in one of the areas. Whether that be work, whether that be relaxation, whether that be life, which we'll touch on later. You're so involved in one aspect of your life that you don't give time for other aspects. So I think that begs the question, right? But why do we burn ourselves out? So to answer that, I feel we need to look deeper. So on the surface, there's two main problems that I found. One is society. Society is inherently egocentric. What does that mean? It means that it's so focused on everybody becoming the best version of themselves. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but they do it at the expense of others, right? When you've heard the expression, when one man wins, another man loses, right? So, I believe everyone here has experienced some form of burnout, right? The whole society is suffering nowadays because of the online environment, whether it's because of isolation, social isolation, or it's because of their amount of workload, or whatever there is, society is suffering. So, and society is structured in such a way that promotes everything but our wellness, right? They pay you overtime for working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. They encourage that. They're like, I'll pay you more, right? Instead, jobs are fundamentally flawed. They don't care about your well-being. They care about the work you give to them. And that our society is surrounded by what's called an efficient outcome as opposed to equitable or fair outcome, right? It's not a balance. It does not promote a balanced life. But if we go a little bit deeper than that, go a little bit deeper, because we can't blame everything on society, right? We have the power to change it as individuals. So ask ourselves, why are we doing what we're doing? For me, personally, after thinking about it a lot, I've found that every action I have is for me to gain peace, love, and happiness. And soon enough, we'll discuss why this is the case for everyone, why everyone is seeking these three qualities. Every action, every test you write, every award you win, there's always a deeper meaning behind that. So the combination of society's inherently flawed structure and our inability to motivate ourselves to do anything about it combines to allow us to burn out, right? Okay, so now we're going to talk about the inner balance diagram. So, can anyone guess what are the three components to the inner balance life diagram? Peace.
Work.
So yeah, work, peace, we'll get there. But it's work, life, and relaxation, right? So if you think about it, what is work? Exactly. It could be different for you. It could be, for me, I'm a full-time student, right? For someone, it'll be their full-time job. For someone, it could be a caregiver to their kids. That's your job. That's your responsibility. So, one thing I want to emphasize is the only real thing limited on this earth is time, right? We're all here for a finite amount of time. We can make as much money as we want. We can do as much things, but the only thing limited is our time. So let's put this in the perspective of time. Why do you work? Because it's time for your responsibilities. So it's associated with responsibilities. So next, we'll dive into the life section. So what is life to you? It could be time with family. It could be your hobbies. For me, I like playing basketball or playing some music. What are your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing? And lastly, it could be socializing with friends. That's what society's definition is of living life, right? So how does time fit in here? You're giving time to others, right? You're giving time to your family. You're giving time to friends, right? And lastly, there's the relaxation part, right? Relaxation, what is it for you? For most people, I hope, it is sleep, right? For people nowadays, it's entertainment in the form of social media, in the form of videos, in the form of movies, right? And third, but last but not least, it's going to be your prayer time, meditation. And what is this? It's going to be time for yourself, right? You're allocating that time to regenerate physically and mentally so that you can conquer the next day, right? So, but we can go a lot deeper than this, right? That's just the tip of the iceberg. But what's underneath is what we have to really look at. So, can I get the next slide, please? So, why do you work? Simple question. Why do you work?
For money, so we get happiness.
Yeah, for money. So you work to gain resources, right? Resources in the form of money, resources in the form of benefits, resources in the form of anything to do with your well-being, right? Why do you live? Why do you have a life? You live to develop relationships, right? Humans are inherently social creatures. We can't go without socialization, right? So that's an important aspect. Although many people say, oh, I like being alone, humans are inherently built to socialize with others, whether that be now through the internet, right? That's a form of socialization. Or it be face-to-face, which is very limited nowadays. But those are all types of relationships, right? And lastly, why do you relax? Yeah, you relax to physically and mentally rest. That's time for yourself, right? You want to take time out of your day for yourself. So those are the 3 R's, I like to call them: resources, relationships, and rest. But can we go even deeper than that? Why do we gain resources? So, it's to gain happiness. When we get money, when we spend money, when we get new things, what do we feel? Happiness. Even though it may be in a temporary form. How long did that new car's happiness last you? A month? 6 months? Maybe a year? But then what? A new model came out. So, we gain resources to continually gain new stuff in order to satisfy our quench for happiness, right? And then, why do you have relationships? Exactly, to feel loved. Humans, that's the one thing that they need from social isolation. They need love, right? A lot of people expect it from others. But what we don't realize is we ourselves are a human, right? We can love ourselves, right? And that's a really big part of it. You can't love anybody else if you don't have love to give, right? If you don't love yourself. So that's the next big part. And finally, why do you rest? Exactly, to find peace. We find peace in sleeping. We find peace in relaxing, taking time out for ourselves. But the big thing here is what quality of rest do you get, right? For me, sometimes sleeping at night, I'll have terrible quality of sleep. And do I feel rested when I wake up? No. Can you feel rested if you don't have a good night's sleep? Can you feel energetic the next morning? No. So what does this signify? An unbalanced life. Coming back to the fisherman, right? He does everything he did for happiness. All he did was fish the bare minimum, right? Because he knew he didn't need more than that. But he spent more time with love and with peace, right? That's where a lot of people go wrong nowadays. They spend too much time either working, right? And not enough time for life and for rest, right? So, let's tie this in full circle here, right? So, for love, right? You love to develop relationships, to be loved, right? You have a life to develop relationships to be loved. And ironically, that was our first episode in the self-care series. Our second episode was about work, where you work to gain resources, to gain happiness. But then we discussed in our second episode that you can't really gain true happiness through materialistic resources. And through our last episode, we talked about relaxation, where we relax to gain peace, right? But can we really gain true peace if we're spending too much time on the entertainment, a part of it, and not enough time on the sleep part, right? They're under the same category, but it's a quality of relaxation. Using phones, using iPads, using TVs, that's a very low form of quality for relaxation. Sleeping is the highest form. Why? Because you both get to physically and mentally rest, right? Electronics is just a diversion from our reality. In that way, through electronics, right? We try to find peace, but we can only physically rest, not mentally rest. It actually mentally excites us. So are we really finding peace through electronics? No. Okay, next slide, please. So, that's the inner balance. You want peace, love, and happiness. And that's how you find inner balance. That's a simple formula, right? So, now we're going to talk about outer balance. So we all know that problems will come your way, no matter what, right? You can't stop problems from coming. You can't stop obstacles from coming. But what can you do? You can build your inner strength to help deal with those problems. So a simple formula is your outer balance, your physical, right? It equals outer pressure over inner strength, right? But can we control outer pressure? No, right? I'll give you an example. I have a deadline. That's outer pressure, right? So what happens if I have weak inner strength?
Yeah, the pressure will follow you.
Yeah. So weak inner strength is associated with what? An unbalanced life. And when you have an unbalanced life, what do we have? Depleted energy. So will I have the energy to deal with the deadline? Will I put in my full 100% of effort? Will I give the best product that I possibly can? No, because internally I don't feel good. So how can I externally produce the results, right? So let's take the flip side scenario. I have a very balanced life. I'm energetic. I'm motivated. Then what happens? No matter how much outer pressure there is, right? The outer balance will be there. I will still get the results. I will still meet the deadlines. I will still give the best quality of work whilst feeling good about myself inside. Right? You can't change the world if you can't change what's inside you, right? A lot of people have aspirations. Oh, I want to do this. I want to help this many people. I want to do this in the world, right? Yet they're not willing to change what's inside of them, change their flaws, accept their flaws, right? Okay. So, next is unexpected events will always come your way, but if you don't have inner balance, it will negatively affect you, right? However, if you have inner balance, you will treat these problems like opportunities for growth, and that's the biggest thing, right? What's the difference between the most successful people in society, where success is determined by wealth, between the successful and the not so successful people? They learn from their problems. They treat them as opportunities for growth. A lot of people, when a problem comes their way, they're like, why? Life is not fair. Why is this happening to me? Well, of course life is not fair, right? But the only thing you can do to make it better is treat it as an opportunity for growth. Next, I want to discuss everything in life isn't perfectly balanced, right? Is perfectly balanced, pardon me. So if there wasn't a perfect balance of nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide in the air, we wouldn't survive, right? That's why global warming is such an issue, right? Because it's altering the natural composition of gases in the air. And when that happens, what happens to us? It negatively affects us, right? Same things goes for gravity. Same things goes for our solar system. If we didn't have the specific orbit we were in, right? The universe would cease to exist, right? So the true nature of humans and the environment around it is meant to be balanced. A lot of people are like, why is inner balance so important? I prioritize work over life and relaxation, right? But we are inherently meant to be balanced, right? Everything that surrounds us is part of an equilibrium of balance, right? So I'll give you an example then, right? Take an eagle. What are the three most important parts of an eagle? It's going to be their wings, their beak, and their claws. Now I just want you to think. Try to think for a second. Can an eagle be missing one of those and still survive? No, the answer is no. So if it's missing a beak, right? It can't eat. If it's missing a wings, it can't fly. If it's missing its claws, it can't walk and it can't grab food. So the eagle equally needs all three of these parts. No one is more important than the other. All three are equally important, as should peace, love, and happiness be in your life. In that inner balance, all of them should be equally important. You can't prioritize peace and love and not care about happiness, right? Because you're going to fall into a state of disaster, right? So I think that brings us to the next question. Are all three of these virtues, peace, love, and happiness, equally balanced for you? It's very difficult to find someone who says yes to this question, right? Because it's very difficult to do. It's by no means an easy process. If someone is balanced between these three virtues, then they are inherently content in life. It's very hard to find someone who's actually content with their life. Why? Because people are looking elsewhere for these three when it all exists inside you, right? So, we want a balance of peace, love, and happiness, correct? We want it. But why don't we do it? It's affected by three external factors. So, why can't we have the happiness? We are pushed by things like greed to prioritize work in pursuit of materialistic objects. I want that new car. I want that new house. Why though? Because it gives me happiness. But does it give you permanent or temporary happiness, right? We are pushed by things, and that's one of the biggest part of society nowadays. That's why society is so based on money, so based on wealth, so based on image, right? That it pushes us to work those 14-hour days. It doesn't push us to be the fisherman. Society doesn't want us to have a balanced life that's not propelling like the whole human generation forward. Instead, it doesn't want to get lagged behind in history. It wants to make new advancements. And how do you make new advancements? By working those 14-hour, 16-hour days. So it's training us to all be businessmen, right? Second, we are pushed by things like expectation and desires to gain love that develops dependency, right? So, we've all heard of the term unconditional love, right? And where's the only place you can find unconditional love? In pets, if we think about it. Is there a single human that will give you unconditional love with no expectations in return? No matter how hard you try, someone will always expect something for you. Why? Because we as humans, inherently, we develop dependencies. If you did this once for me, I'm going to depend that you can do it again. If you don't do it, then it's obviously your fault, right? You did it once for me, so why can't you do it again? Dependency is one of the biggest ruiners in relationships, right? Because people have dependencies and expectations for others. And when others can't fulfill those expectations, they feel hurt, they feel betrayed, right? But if you didn't have that dependency, if you didn't have that expectation to begin with, right? Then there would be no problem. And the third thing is peace. What's the biggest advocator of peace? It's going to be stress. Why do you lay down in the middle of the day? Why do you procrastinate your work and instead go watch some TV? Because you want a feeling of peace when all that you're feeling is stress. But does that solve the problem? No, that just delays your problems, makes it worse even, right? You're looking for peace, but all you're doing is gaining temporary satisfaction through the use of entertainment, sleep, in order to fulfill peace, right? So stress, overdoing, overthinking things, right, will always inhibit you from gaining peace. So, I think that brings us to lesson number 2. So lesson number 1 we learned from the story, and that was live in the moment, right? If we live for tomorrow, right, who guarantees there'll be tomorrow? No one. There's no guarantee. So why are we living in the past, and why are we living in the future? Right? We all want to be like the businessman, right? A lot of us have aspirations to get very rich and then retire and settle, right? But why can't we be the fisherman who already is content with life, right? So lesson number 2 is know your priorities and your passion. So these are the 2 big P's, I like to call them. So priorities and passion. So we'll take a look at priorities first. So number 1 is give equal priority to peace, love, and happiness. We already discussed that no one is important than the other, right? No one is important than the other. So why do we give importance to work over life and relaxation, right? In order to attain that inner balance, which will ultimately give you contentment, we need an equal balance. Number 2, get rid of the things that don't add value to your day. This is something you hear a lot. Don't play electronics. Don't waste your time, right? But it's difficult. I personally struggle with this, right? If someone told me that you can't watch Netflix or Prime Video or YouTube for the rest of your life, what will you do? I would be like, I don't know, right? Because so much of our time is going into this section of our life that can add value, but usually doesn't. These can be very informational, right? But instead we use it to gain temporary relaxation, which gains us temporary peace. But are we really at ease with ourselves? No. So in order to gain that unconditional peace, right, we want to get rid of these things. And then the third, delegate and play to your strengths, right? You can't be a jack of all trades. The only thing that will happen if you're a jack of all trades is you're going to end up working 18, 20 hours a day, right? And is that a balanced life? No. So we want to play to your strengths, right? Know when you are defeated. Know when someone can do something better than you. It only hurts your ego. But then again, why do we have an ego, right? It's because of society's image of us, right? We have to live up to an expectation set by society. But what if there was no expectation, right? Then you would have no ego. Number 4, this one is one that I struggle with, is to stay focused. I'll jump around from task to task. Why? It's not as bad as entertainment, but it's a form of procrastination. Why don't I do the easy task first other than the urgent one, right? Because it's easier. I can get it off my mind. But why? What happens then? I'll pick up another easy task. And soon enough, all the urgent tasks will compile, where then you just burn out, right? And is that healthy in any way? No. And number 5, how do I implement all this? How? It's not like one day I'm going to go like, okay, I'm going to allocate 8 hours to work, 8 hours to life, 8 hours to relaxation, because that's not how life works, right? You want to make marginal changes. Take baby steps, right? One day I'm going to limit the amount of electronics I watch by 15 minutes. That's it. And maybe use that 15 minutes in an area that I'm lacking in. Maybe it says relaxation. Maybe I want to meditate for 15 minutes, right? And that meditation will instead provide me with unconditional peace as opposed to temporary peace, right? So that's priorities. Now, can we move on to passion? So, find out what you're passionate about. But like how? How do I find out? Everyone's like, find your passion. Find this, right? It's what gives you motivation to get up in the morning. There's no wrong answers, right? For some people, it is money. And there's nothing wrong with that, unless you take it to the extremes, right? Unless you're hurting other people and hurting yourself in the process, right? We can't change society. We can't be like, okay, money isn't important right now, because it is. It's a big part. It plays a big part in your life. But instead, you should use that money in better ways, right? Instead of buying those $100 shoes, maybe you could donate it to a $100 charity, right? What's going to happen? You're going to get 10 times the blessings than you would have with those shoes, right? So, number 3, are my values reflected in my everyday actions? Your passion is directly associated with your values, right? If you're passionate about money, then what do you value? Right? Money. So, are my values reflected in my everyday actions? You need to ask yourself every action that you do. Are my values reflected in it? Number 4 is check and change. This is a very common phrase, but people don't really get to interpret it. At the end of every day, you have to check and change. But how's that? You need to see what you could have done better in the day. Nobody's perfect. It's impossible to be perfect, and nobody would want to be perfect. A lot of people say, I want to be perfect, but why? Then you're going to get that expectation built up for you by others. And what's going to happen? You're going to burn out. You're going to live an unbalanced life if you're trying to be perfect. So instead, check and change to live a balanced life. Instead of a perfect life, now people are saying, I want to live a balanced life. Right? And number 5 is staying positive. This can be really tough, even when the times are like rough, right? But staying positive is what gets a lot of people through the most difficult scenarios, right? whether it's being stuck up on a mountain, right? If you lose that hope, if you lose that positivity, then it's done, right? You need something to hold on to. Okay, so can we get the next slide, please? So, this brings us to this diagram, okay? So, at first this may seem a little confusing, but let me break it down. So, you do everything to have everything, to be everything. This may seem a little confusing, but you do everything. Why do you go to work? We'll use work as an example. You do work, you do all those to have something, to have money, to be something, to be popular, to be rich, to be famous, right? Why do we ultimately want money? It's not, we may want that big house, we may want the big car, but we want to ultimately show that to other people, to show that to society that I am successful. However, do you think this is right? You're using the outer world to judge your inner world. Your inner balance is getting affected by your decisions that are based on the outer world. Right? So what is the real way that this diagram should be? So in a utopia, a perfect world, you be everything, to have everything, to do everything, right? You want to first question, what do I want to be, right? That goes back to our statement. Are your values associated with every action you make? If it's not, then you're following the rest of reality, the rest of society, right? You want to be someone. I want to be a philanthropist, someone who donates a lot of money. And thus, I will have the abilities to become the philanthropist, and I will do everything in order to become a philanthropist, right? So your inner world, your peace, love, and happiness determines what you do in the outer world. It's not the opposite. Oh, that guy has a nice car. Let me get that car. And that judges my inner, what I want to be, right? It should be the opposite. You want to use your inner world to then do actions in the outer world, right? So, why should I prioritize a balanced life, though? Why? Society prioritizes your outer appearance, your public image, when it should prioritize your inner appearance. I found this really beautiful quote. It says, outer beauty is a gift. Inner beauty is an accomplishment. Why do we want to get all the awards, get all the accolades, get all the accomplishments, right? To show society that we, again, are successful, which is defined by society's terms. But that isn't a real accomplishment. Why? Because an outer accomplishment, an award, an accolade, will provide temporary contentment and lead to an unbalanced life. I'll give you an example, right? So I used to work in grade 12. I used to work so hard for all these scholarships and awards that I wanted to get into university with. But now that I'm in university, do I still feel the contentment from receiving those awards? No, it was only temporary. And what did I sacrifice in order to get those awards, right? I sacrificed my life. I sacrificed relaxation in order to prioritize work. Looking back on it, should I have prioritized life and relaxation? Yes, because do I feel any happiness now that I got this? Sure, it's cool to say, hey, I got this award, I got that award. But does it add real value to me as an individual? No, it's just a facade put on by society. It defines you by the amount of awards and accomplishments you get. So instead, we should focus on inner accomplishments, which will provide you with permanent contentment and will lead you to a balanced life. All the most successful people, they all now live balanced lives. Why? Because living a balanced life will mean you will live a healthy, happy, peaceful, and loving life, right? The healthy is one of the most important parts. For me, I'm sitting on a desk 10 hours a day, right? Is that healthy in any way? No. Why am I doing it? Because I want good grades? Because I want accomplishments? Because I want to be recognized by society, right? But is that ever going to give me permanent contentment? No, it's not, right? So, if all three of these virtues are balanced, you will achieve everlasting contentment, right? just like the fisherman did. He did not care that the American businessman was so much richer, had so much more money, so much materialistic objects, because he was happy with himself and he was happy with the life he was living, right? That triumphs all feelings, right? Someone can go up to you and say, but you don't have this. But you know internally what you have, living a balanced life, and you feel good about it, right? So, that brings us to the third big lesson, is be true to yourself. Don't do anything that's going to sacrifice your values, right? In order to appear as someone else you're not, right? You want those accolades, sure. But are you doing it for yourself? Or are you doing it for others? If you're doing it for others, why are you doing it for others? Because you want their attention, because you want their recognition. Why do you want their recognition? Because you want to be valued by them. Why do you want to be valued by them? Because you want to feel love from them, right? Everything goes back to peace, love, and happiness. So, and then you want love from them, but can they ever unconditionally provide love for you? No, they can't. So, what do we do now? Who's the only person that could provide unconditional love to yourself? You, right? You. Society will never be satisfied with how many accomplishments you get. So instead, if you focus on your internal accomplishments, I live a balanced life, I have peace, love, and happiness, then you will feel true contentment. So that's why you be true to yourself. A lot of people say it, but they don't understand the meaning why you should. Because you're not fooling anybody except yourself. Sure, you can win all those awards, you can get all those accomplishments, right? But at the end of the day, you're still the same person with the same personality, right? But what did you have to sacrifice to get there? Your balance. And when you sacrifice your balance, what did you sacrifice? Your well-being, right? So, why don't people have balance then, right? It seems like a great idea, but why? Why don't people have balance? Well, there's two types of needs any individual has. The physical needs and the mental needs, okay? This quote says, when you balance your heart and mind equally, you are the master of yourself. We discussed that only you can provide unconditional love to yourself. But you can only do that when you are the master of yourself. Do you have control over your mind? That's what a lot of people struggle with, including myself. I tell myself I should put TV away now. But then my mind gets into play. But why? You're relaxing. You're getting this temporary peace, right? So only if you balance your heart and your mind equally, your heart will tell you, it's not right to watch another 10 minutes of TV. It's not right. Then you will master yourself, right? So, the physical and mental needs. What are we all? We're human beings, right? Human stands for the physical part. We're all humans. But what does a being stand for? Stands for your spiritual self, which signifies your mental needs, right? A lot of us just focus on the human part. We want what's going to appear on this body, what accomplishments, accolades, right? But we don't focus on the mental part of ourselves, right? That's why so many people have trouble falling asleep, because their mind's not at rest. You need both physical rest, but on top of that, you need mental rest. And you can only gain a good quality of relaxation when you have both. So, next slide, please. So, balance comes from quality relaxation that fulfills both physical and mental needs, right? However, most people just fulfill their physical, that even if. Some people are sleeping 4 hours a day, right? So focused on other parts of their life that they say, I don't need sleep. But biologically, the human body needs 8 hours of sleep, 6 to 8 hours of sleep, right? So how does that make sense? Even though you think you might need 4 hours of sleep, what's really happening inside your body, you will never know, right? And then again, you're sacrificing your well-being. So the only way to fulfill the mental need is to relax your mind and spend time with yourself. What do I mean by that? Take 15-30 minutes a day, for example, and just sit with yourself to reflect, right? Reflect what you could have done better. Reflect are you loving yourself? Ask yourself all these big questions, right? So, what's the importance of sitting with yourself, right? Well, it all ties into these three major lessons that we talked about. One was live in the moment, right? We can't live for the future and past. And we can't live for anyone else either, right? So live in the moment. Two, know your priorities and your passion. Everything you do should align with your priorities, should align with what you're passionate about. If it doesn't, then there's no real meaning behind that action. And you're doing it because of some other external factor, the greed, the stress, all those negative thoughts, right? And three is be true to yourself. You're not fooling anybody except yourself. Even if you do something wrong, have the courage to admit it, right? Be true to yourself. You could just act like nothing happened, right? But are you growing as a person when you do that? No. The first step to everything is acknowledging, right? Acknowledge I did this. Acknowledge I'm not this, right? So, overall, I just want to emphasize that we should expect less from society and more from yourself. You should hold yourself to a higher standard. Why? Because then you will be able to accomplish what you set your mind to. You can't hold society to a higher standard because they're never going to change for you. But only you can change for yourself. So you need to start expecting less from society. Expect less from the people that you love, but instead give them unconditional love, you know? And you want to expect more from yourself. Expect more love to yourself, right? Expect to spend more time with yourself. Going through, what did I do today? Is it aligned with my purpose? What is my purpose, right? Ask yourself all these big questions. A lot of people are afraid to ask themselves because they've been doing it wrong all this time, right? They've been not aligning their actions with their priorities. But the first step is acknowledgement, right? So, we're going to tie this back to the Mexican fisherman story. So, do you want to be the businessman or the fisherman? The businessman has all the money in the world. But does he truly have happiness? No. Why is he let's question why is he in Mexico in the first place? Probably to take a vacation. But why is that? Probably because he didn't have balance, so now he's overcompensating for relaxation. He spent all those months working really hard, prioritizing work over life and relaxation, that now he takes this week off. And now he spends this time compensating for the relaxation and life part that he missed. But is that the right way? Is that healthy? Is the real question. Sure, you can go on vacation, right? And a lot of people do deserve vacation. There's nothing wrong with it. But ask yourself, why do you want to go on vacation? Is it because I lead an unbalanced life, so now I can go on vacation and try to escape the reality of an unbalanced life? Or can I try to change myself, change my inner balance, change the work, the life relaxation to ultimately attain peace, love, and happiness, right? So, I think I'll leave you with this last quote now. So, no one on his deathbed ever said, I wish I had spent more time in my office, right? So, we all want to change society, but the only thing we can truly change is ourselves. We can help people, but we can't change others. Everyone is so focused on changing others. But the only true thing we can change ourselves, and only when we change ourselves, then we can help others. If you're not willing to change yourself and trying to help change others at the same time, it's never going to work. You're only going to leave disappointed, right? So, time is now to make change. So, hopefully you guys learned something from this workshop today. Thank you guys so much for coming. Feel free to check out all the other episodes on YouTube under the playlist of Self-Care Improving the Quality of Life series. And just if you were to I just want you to take 1 minute to think about one thing that you're going to take away from this class. Because there was a lot of information, right? But I want one thing that stuck with you. I'm not telling you to become perfect. I just want to help you live a balanced life. Thank you.